Okay, April, we can start.
Okay. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Co-Star, the official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press on December 4th, 2019, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building. To keep our residents safe and abide by the latest state regulations and CDC information, we are bringing this meeting to you through Zoom. The meeting will run just like any other regular council meeting. Our multimedia director will be the Zoom administrator throughout the meeting. You will still be able to comment during the public comment sessions. When the time comes, you will click on the raise hand button, and our multimedia director will then unmute each person one at a time so you may speak. Please state your name and address before you speak, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, April. If everybody could join me in saluting the flag of our great nation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
in liberty
and justice for all.
If everybody could just have a moment of silence for our troops, their families, especially our first responders, all our health workers in this time of crisis. And I also like to mention Marion Pringle, who died since our last meeting. She was the mother of Ken Pringle, our former mayor. And I was just informed today that Jerry Lynch died of the COVID-19 virus. I believe it was today because I got notified just before this meeting. So if I have a moment of silence for them. Thank you. All right, first we got some workshop discussions. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, but first what I want to bring up is some updating on the COVID-19 virus, everything that we've been doing around town. I mean, there's been a lot going on since our last meeting. You know, as many of you know, we had to close the boardwalk because everybody was closing boardwalks. Our boardwalk was getting crowdeder and crowdeder. So and the thing that we did was we closed off the parking on the east side of Ocean Avenue, which really helped deter a lot of people from coming to our town. We've been in touch with the state and the county, and we're working closely with them. One of the things that we've done this past week with all the summer rentals, we've stopped all summer rentals, including online rentals, until Memorial Day weekend. Our code enforcement has stopped doing any kind of inspections, so we're going to be keeping an eye on that to make sure nobody sneaks anybody in early, because there was some leases where people were coming in April 15th and May 1st, so we're holding them back for right now until Memorial Day weekend, and then we're going to play it by ear as we get closer to that to see if it has to be longer. We don't know exactly what we're doing with the beaches yet. You know, it's still a little, we think it's still a little early, and we'll be watching, monitoring that week to week, day to day. I want to put it over to our business administrator, Ed Kirschenbaum, because he has a lot more information on what's been going around town with COVID-19. So Ed, if you can give us an update.
Mute here. Okay, thanks, Mayor. First of all, I want to start out by thanking some people. There's been a lot of community support during this challenging times. Pat Hutchinson, Sharon Russell Fowler, Joanna Roper Robinson, Antoinette Rose, Elba Cruz, Debbie and Allison Mendiker, and Terry Lynch. They've been working with a group of people making masks out of cloth. For everybody knows that the N95 mask for healthcare workers and our first responders are in demand. There's none that you can get. So to help facilitate our residents and some of our staff, they've been fabricating cloth masks, and it's much appreciative. They're grinding it out every single day. They're getting to Borough Hall, and we're getting to the people that need them. We dropped 60 off at the senior center the other day. They had a request for masks. They couldn't get any. So we made a delivery with community policing and the Office of Emergency Management to get them over there, and we thank them. Also, John Hutchinson is making face masks through a fabricator in his own shop. We're giving them to all our first responders to help with any transport of any suspected problems with COVID-19, and we thank him. Kate Heath has started a drive for nurses and doctors, collecting lip balm, hand lotions, candies, and inspirational messages. She has delivered 200 packets to Jersey Shore University Medical Center, and we're still taking donations down here at Borough Hall. Donations can be dropped off at Sweet Teas, 604 Main Street in Belmar. The Belmar Elementary School donated filament used to make the masks, the 3D masks. It's a roll of plastic that we need to fabricate these shields, and we thank them for that. The Borough Fire Marshal's Office and the Office of Emergency Management has collected masks, wipes, sanitizers for local responders, and we have donated again to the nurses and the doctors and the medical staff at Jersey Shore University Medical Center. We do have a request out there for the following items, if they could be dropped off in our lobby. This will help the people that are making these cloth masks move forward, because as time goes on, more people will need masks as we go about our daily affairs. We need pre-washed cotton fabric, flannel, t-shirts, men's dress shirts, and sheets. We need thread of any color, sewing pins. We need the twist ties for food storage bags. We don't need the bags, we just need the ties. Vacuum filters, thin fabric-like for inserting in the fabric face masks, thin elastic of any type and any size, 3D filament, PLA diameter 1.75 millimeters, any color for making the face shields. And we'll post this information on our COVID-19 website and all our social media. And we need buttons of any size. Anything that anybody can do to help our healthcare workers and our first responders. Here in Belmar, we're still staggered shifts. We're keeping essential staff working from home. Also, they are working in the office because we have to keep government moving forward. We have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of residents out there that are pulling together and helping us get some much needed personal protection equipment to our first responders and to the healthcare workers at our hospitals. And we truly appreciate that.
Sorry about that. All right, moving on the consent agenda items. I just want to talk about a few things on here. One of them is our Chief Financial Officer. We've been getting a lot of questions on that. Christine Manolio is not leaving us. She's going to work hourly for a couple days a week. She's going to step down into the assistant position, and we're bringing in basically a shared service from Carteret. Ricardo is going to come in as our Chief Financial Officer. He's going to work 1 day a week. And we're bringing in our financial consultant, who's also going to do another part of the CFO's work. So with the three of them, it works out that it'll cost us about the same amount of money. We don't have to pay health benefits. We don't have to pay any kind of pension. So it works out better for us. We have more eyes on it. Christine will still be here. She'll be looking at everything, watching everything, and she's going to do more of getting all of our payroll systems and everything like that up and running online, which has been lacking, trying to get everything done. So hopefully it's going to work out. Everybody thinks that they're in agreement that it can work and it's going to save us some money. So we're going to try it out. We're going to watch it closely and make sure everything goes smooth. Business Administrator Kirschenbaum, anything else on that?
Yes, Mayor. What has happened is Christine Manolio, who has done an excellent job here, she is bound by pension laws that she can only work 25 hours a week. And coming in to Belmar, it was a monumental task for her. She was retired out of Toms River. She thought she would have assistant finance officers to rely on, and with all due respect, there was really the lack of cross-training here within our office staff, so everything fell on her. We have only been reactive, not proactive, and we've talked over the past few months in regards to how some things have slipped between the cracks with the water bills and things of that nature. So we have to cross-train our front office staff. We had a HR personnel leave December 31st. We have not filled that position, so we were saving there. In order to get a CFO, it would cost upwards of 120 to 130 plus benefits package. So we've sat down. Christine has told me and the mayor for quite some time that she planned on stepping down and working just a couple of days a week. But once that happens, all our reports could be kept up to speed. We used to pay Spring Lake $17,000 a year for payroll. We've taken that in-house. We're going to automate our scheduling system with Paylocity instead of the Excel spreadsheets. So that's manpower intensive. So there are benefits that Christine here, with her institutional knowledge of how things went in the past year and 4 months, that she can work with the new CFO, she can work with the auditing company, and she can work with our front office staff to get everybody cross-trained, to make sure that the reports are up to speed, to make sure that there's nothing falling through the cracks, and to make us a little bit more financially secure. So we welcome the change. It was not done without thought and process. And of course, Christine has expressed the need to just work part-time versus the nights and weekends that she was working over and above her 25 hours a week. So we welcome the change. We think it's a good change for the borough of Belmar, and we'll reevaluate it as we move forward, but we think it's the right move.
Thank you, Ed. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up before we move on, I know that we still have the COVID-19 on our minds, but I know that we wanted to talk about the ordinance 2018, which is the change of ordinance for special improvement district. And, you know, we've been getting a lot of emails on both sides of this issue, you know, and basically we were getting emails saying that we're raising taxes and we're doing everything under the sun, but that was not the case. There is a value to having the special improvement district. We wanted to make a change. We actually wanted to lower taxes and work more together with the borough of Belmar. There was a lot of issues going forward since probably last September, October, when everybody was quitting the board. And we wanted to put people on the board that were paying members and people that had a lot of skin in the game to make these decisions on some of the expenditures that were going on. In no way did I want to remove the special improvement district, but I think, I don't know if we're in consensus or not with the rest of the council, but I think we're pretty much in agreement with the attorneys and everyone that there needs to be a change to make it run more efficient. So some of the things that were, when we were having meetings, a lot of people out there don't know about the special improvement district. The business property owners pay an assessment, which is, in my mind, tax money. And we turn it over to the BBP. The feeling that we were getting from the BBP is that it's not tax money, it's an assessment. We don't have any right to oversee what they were spending their money on, which the attorneys and this board, this governing body doesn't seem to agree with. I think there needs to be a little bit more oversight. It's taxpayer money that goes through the borough of Belmar. So these are the reasons why we're making the changes on that, just to not to take it over. We did not want to take it over like everybody's accusing me of. I wanted to put a board in place that would run the meetings, advertise the meetings, run the meetings in public so that everybody it could be transparent. Everybody sees what's going on. Everybody knows where the expenditures are happening, making sure that there is quotes on different expensive items. And so that was our main objective. Now, I know Tom is the liaison for the board, so I know you wanted to say a couple words in workshop. So if you could chime in with some of your questions on what we're doing with the.
Sure. So I believe we're going to pull for the time being, we're going to pull the ordinance from the agenda. You know, there have been a lot of discussions, phone calls, emails. I've been fielding text messages all week long, a lot of input from business owners, property owners, etc. And I do believe that a restructuring of the BBP is something, or the SID, what that means for the current operating entity of the BBP, I'm not sure ultimately, but having the internal discussions, and my thought right now is that given the current situation that we're in, that proceeding with anything right now is ill-advised. And I'm glad that, we came to a consensus to just sort of hold off on voting on this until the time is right. What I do hope, though, is that the current BBP entity, the current SID entity, which is the BBP, can utilize the resources that they have and assist the Belmar businesses to the extent that they can in this difficult time. So that's my position on it right now. I know that we're not going to have a vote and probably not have comment on the ordinance. However, I do welcome any of the business owners or property owners to speak in the open part of the meeting about this, so that we can get further information and feedback.
Okay, thanks. Council President Brennan, you have any input that you want to bring into this subject?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with everything that Councilman Carvelli said. We have heard a lot. We've really heard a lot from people on both sides of this issue. I think there is a consensus that although the BBP has done some very valuable things, there are definitely some things that are not working correctly. And in particular, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I think the assessment is, there's no way you can't think of it as a tax. And that being said, one of the things I've always lived by, one of the maxims I've always lived by as a council person is, if people are going to pay taxes, don't waste their money. Make sure you're using it as efficiently as possible and getting things done that they need to have done. And I see in several cases that's not what's happening here. I think the idea of slimming down the board of directors, right now there's a 17-member board. How do you get anything done with that? I mean, you have to have 9 people just to have a quorum, right? It just seems inefficient. And the other thought that I've had about this is the governing entity of the SID is literally the only committee or all the land use boards, the environmental commission, the tourism commission, everybody on those is appointed, and they don't have a budget. They have a little tiny bit. Some of them have a little tiny bit of money. There's the idea that there's an unappointed board that is able to make decisions about funds like that. I just don't think that's really the way to go. That being said, I also, again, agree with Councilman Carvelli. Given our situation right now, it's really not the time. What we need to do is start from the ideas of the census, the things that people agree on. We got to get them in a room so they can yell at each other if they have to, get everything on the table, and work from there to come up with something that everybody can work with. And that's not now. All right, that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilwoman Wan, do you have a comment on it?
Yes, I go along with everything that two Toms have said. Through this, I have spoken to people on both sides. I've received many phone calls, tons of emails. I've spoken individually with the mayor, with you, and with the other council people regarding this. It is very confusing. It needs to be straightened out, and it's not going to happen just by passing this ordinance right away. I'm very happy it's being pulled, We'll sit down and we're going to do this right the first time. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman McCracken.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I concur with my colleagues. I think there's a general misunderstanding sometimes in the public when we introduce an ordinance that this is what we want to do and we're somehow railroading something through, which isn't the case. We often identify that there's a problem or there's an area that needs improvement. We'll ask for an ordinance to be drafted and we'll introduce it so we can get some public feedback, which is exactly what has happened here. Excellent feedback. It's a very trying time with businesses. Obviously, they're not open. They're not generating revenue most places. We certainly don't want to, we want to implement policies and programs that are going to help them recover and be successful in the future. I know that the BBP has identified that they want to improve their bylaws, and they were working on that before this ordinance was introduced. And I want to, make sure we have the opportunity when this pandemic passes to get everybody together, have a very open dialogue, get a presentation in an open council meeting, and create a consensus on how we can have an effective business improvement district or SID or Chamber of Commerce, however it ends up, so that we can support and promote our businesses in town. And I just agree with my colleagues with the limited movement that we have now. It's not just the time to do that, but gratefully, we have received a lot of good comment and feedback from our businesses, which will make this better moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I think what my suggestion would be was we'll table it tonight, and then the minute that we could have a live meeting, we'll do it something like on a special council meeting on a Saturday morning, and make sure we invite all the people that pay into it, explain the ordinance, explain what we have, and give them the opportunity to give us some direction on which way to go, and really explain the issue on both sides of it. And then, see where we want to head. So it might be like in July on a Saturday morning or something like that. I mean, if you guys are all in agreement with that, we'll table it until we can get a meeting with everybody and discuss the whole issue and go in depth into both sides of the issue. Everybody in agreement with that? Okay.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I got to get used to that. Anybody else have anything before we move on from workshop that they want to bring up?
I do. If I could just ask Mr. Kirschenbaum just a couple COVID questions about how the OEM has been handling things. And I know that PPE supply and procurement has been an issue nationwide, and I'm wondering how Belmar is faring on that front.
We have taken an active role for our first responders and our essential personnel. We were able to jump on a company up in Bergen County that has MSA 420 half respirators that are actually not paper. They are permanent type face masks for our police officers, our DPW workers, and some of our first responders. We've taken funding for that to make sure that they're safe when they go on their calls. So we were able to facilitate that purchase. We're still waiting for 10 or 15 more to come in. We're on a waiting list right now, but we're trying to get everything that we can. The N95s, of course, the protective gear, the suits, and the full face shields. We have procedures in place, like we have at Borough Hall for all our first responders. Chief Scott, Director Campbell have strict guidelines for when people are deployed in regards to social distancing and any face-to-face contact with anybody. Borough Hall has been locked down with just essential staff coming in and out, flip-flopping their schedules so we can make sure that we have a staff well protected from the COVID-19 situation. So as far as personal protection equipment, we've taken the High Road and Department of Public Works, disinfecting all borough facilities, and to include the firehouse. The first aid home was offered. They're doing it themselves. And then we supplied sanitizer and wipes and things of that nature for people in their own personal space to make sure that they continuously wipe down their desks, their keyboards, their cell phones, doorknobs, and things of that nature. So we have Department of Public Works working 7 days a week with split shifts, no overtime at all, to make sure that the facilities are properly sanitized and they maintain some protection for all of our personnel coming to work on a daily basis. So we are out there getting the suits that we need, the goggles that we need, the face shields. We continue to make sure that we have the best equipment for our first responders because they are on the front lines and they are in contact. And so we are working on that, Councilman.
Thank you. And perhaps this is a question for the chief. Have we had any issues enforcing whatever the social distancing rules are, whatever the social distancing rules are? Have we had any issues or seen any problems with any of that?
No, we haven't. There hasn't been any issues as far as people are pretty much following, the social distancing rules. We haven't had any incidents where the officers have been put into any circumstances that could compromise them with exposure or anything like that.
Nobody playing Pink Floyd on their front lawn?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And the one last thing that I did have, thank you very much, Chief, is are we preparing ourselves or is the finance department preparing themselves for getting whatever state and federal aid we possibly can? I know that there was a lot of stuff, a deluge of information, and obviously it's very difficult to keep on top of, but I'm just wondering what it is we're doing to be on top and prepared for that.
We are early on when we knew this was going to happen. Every department head, every worker for the borough of Belmar has filled out the ICS 214, I believe it's the number for the form, that every working moment and every expenditure goes towards COVID-19 because of the state of emergency, the federal state of emergency, the New Jersey state of emergency. So we're documenting, much like they did with Sandy, we're documenting everything that we do to recoup funds of everything that we spend. We have a separate line item for COVID-19 expenditures, which the finance department has put in place. And we have a paper trail to follow us through this entire pandemic. So at the end of the day, we're going to have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted. I do want to say, working with the Office of Emergency Management, the Chief of Police, and all the department heads in Belmar, that as far as social distancing goes and some of the things of the boardwalk and then the beach, we have to all take personal responsibility and understand the fact that the reason why these venues are closed is to make sure that people abide by the state shelter at home guidelines put out by the state of New Jersey and Governor Murphy. All essential travel by vehicle should not take place. People should only be going to the food store or for medical facilities or the pharmacy or to visit someone based on the guidelines of Executive Orders 107 and 108 put out by Governor Murphy. People have to understand that we get calls on a daily basis as well as emails for if somebody sees a mother and a father and 3 children walking together, that they're not practicing social distancing. You have to remember that if they're from the same household and they're together, social distancing doesn't apply. So there's a fine line between people that are not abiding by the guidelines and people that are. We would ask that the general public, before they snap the judgment, call the police department, have it properly investigated. So there's no decisions out there based on false information. So we're trying our best to make sure that everybody follows the guidelines. The personal protection equipment and the funding of this entire situation has been carefully looked at. And we continue on a 7-day, every 7 days we're here. This is a situation that changes by the hour and by the day. And we've been working with our local, our county, our state, and our federal partners. We're constantly on conference calls based on each discipline of government that we work for. So at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get accurate information rather than act on bias or information that's not accurate, and that's how our decisions are made. So I hope that answers your question, Councilman.
It does. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And, you know, I was going to save this for my report, but, you know, I just wanted to recognize the efforts of everything that you're doing, as well as the police officers, the DPW, the OEM. Social media has been great. We've been getting so much stuff out there. And, you know, I know from the information that I'm getting on a daily basis just from social media and the news that it's a deluge, and navigating the landscape is very difficult. So thank you very much, and I'm sure everybody appreciates it.
The other thing I want to say about what we're trying to do with Office of Emergency Management and the Police Department, because of social media and Facebook and things of that nature, people have a tendency to put some fake information out there. I know that Chief Scott has had several issues where she's had to investigate businesses for either price gouging or not supplying proper supplies to individuals. I want everybody to know that we take that seriously, that we investigate every claim that comes into either Borough Hall or to the police department, that every email we try to answer. Sometimes you don't like to hear what we have to say, but we're going to act on proper information and not somebody that's wants to create some problems out there. So we thank the mayor and council for your support, because all the departments are out there. They are the front lines. They are the ones that are doing the job, and we appreciate everybody, everything that they're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing to that. We're getting a lot of information for the businesses on grants and different financial things that the government's helping them out with between the state and the federal government. So we are pumping that out to all the email addresses of the businesses. So I just wanted to let everybody know that there is some grants out there, some zero interest loans, and we are getting it out to all the businesses. All right, anybody else have anything for workshop? Okay. We will move on. Pat, we have a proclamation tonight. Can you read that for us?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. April 5th is CASA Child Advocacy Day, 2020. Whereas we all have a responsibility as individuals, neighbors, community members, and citizens of the Borough of Belmar to help create healthy, nurturing, and safe experiences. And whereas healthy and safe childhoods help produce confident and successful adults. And whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations within community, without community resources and don't know how to cope. And whereas incidences of child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure all families have the support they need and that deserve to raise their children in a healthy environment. And whereas the court-appointed special advocate, CASA, is authorized by the state statute and federal law to help the court and child welfare system make best interest decisions on behalf of children removed from home because of abuse or neglect. And whereas CASA volunteer advocates in Belmar help to ensure that abused and neglected children who are placed in foster care and other out-of-home placements are safe and receive the services they need to achieve well-being. And whereas CASA advocates reduce the number of moves between placements, help shorten the overall time a child remains in placement, and serve as a constant person in the child's life until that child achieves permanency in a safe home with a loving family. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar do hereby proclaim April 2020 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and April 5th as CASA Child Advocacy Day 2020, and urge all citizens to support the CASA network across New Jersey as it strengthens families and helps children learn, grow, and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Wong. All right.
Can't hear you.
I'm on mute again. Usually people like that. No. If anybody has a petition out there that they want to send in, either could email it to April or drop it off in the mailbox at Borough Hall. We'll move on to approval of minutes, April.
Okay, could we have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 17th meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Reports of council. I guess we'll go in the same order. Councilman Carvelli?
Yeah, I think we covered most of the things that I had to report on. We spoke about OEM and all the great work that the people of the OEM, the police officers and DPW, keeping the town going and informed in this time. Again, with all of the information coming through, it's a huge undertaking, and very appreciative of that. We discussed the SID, and like I had said earlier, I'll just reiterate it, that I hope that the current BBP can utilize whatever resources that they have right now to continue to help and service the businesses of Belmar during this time. I'm the liaison. I'm open to just working with them and being available for whatever discussions that they have, just in order to continue to support the businesses through this time. And then the only other thing I was going to talk about, the new CFO. I had been involved in a number of discussions about the candidate. I did not speak with him directly. But I was able to review his resume. I thought that he was an adequate fit, and I'm glad that we were able to put together a plan, find somebody qualified quickly, and put the whole thing together, and give Christine the what she needs. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councilman McCracken?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm the liaison to the Shade Tree Commission. The Shade Tree Commission met last month virtually. They're in the process of reviewing an ordinance from another municipality in Monmouth County that has a commission, and upgrading our ordinance. Obviously, plans for the fourth grade students for Arbor Day need to be revised with the shutdown, but that commission continues to meet, and we have our homework assignments, and is moving forward on initiatives that they've undertaken. Also the liaison to the Belmar Housing Authority. We keep all of the residents in that community in our thoughts and prayers. Obviously, living in a community such as that, the administration has had to implement steps to try to ensure their safety. There's increased cleaning several times a day of the common areas. Residents are asked to stay in their units and not congregate in public areas. The community room and public areas of the building have been closed to the greatest extent as possible. The administration is following the guidelines of the Office of Housing and Urban Development, as well as the Belmar Office of Emergency Management. Mike, the superintendent there, is going to the food pantry weekly. Obviously, food insecurity is a concern of everyone on the board, for everybody, obviously, but people that are asked to stay in their units and may have limited access to go shopping because of restrictions on visitors and other things. So that is ongoing, and we even have a new resident moving in on April 15th, but social distancing guidelines are going to be top priority, not only the safety of the person moving in, but all the residents there. So, and lastly, there was a bid put out to replace the roof. I think only one bid was received, and that may be going out again. But let's please keep all the residents there in our thoughts and prayers, knowing that they probably quite lonely and isolated while we're all in this sort of self-quarantine situation. and hopefully we will get over this curve shortly and return to normal here sometime in the next few weeks. I'd also like to thank our police chief, Tina Scott, and our director of emergency management, Frank Snelly, for all they are doing to keep Belmar residents safe during this time. I know that people have different opinions about what the governor is mandating that we do, as well as the federal government and decisions that are made at the local level. But there's one thing that I certainly do know, and I know that that's all the decisions that are made in the effort of doing what's best for Belmar residents and keeping us safe. Thank you for everybody for their hard work. This situation is very dynamic. Many and the guidance that we're getting from authorities is changing constantly. It's hard to keep up. Piggybacking on what Councilman Carvelli said, I think as a council here, it's got to be our top priority here, not only to protect our residents, keep everybody safe, but to promote our businesses. And I think delaying the SID ordinance will give us an opportunity to do that. And I think that I appreciate all the work that the borough is doing. John Sabia, who's organized this Zoom meeting, and letting people know through our social media what restaurants are open and where you can go and what you can do. So we're supporting our businesses. And I think we need to, as a council, over the next 2 weeks, explore any ways that we can to promote our businesses and streamline our government and make sure that we're doing what we can as a municipality to support them. And just one of the ideas that I had, and this isn't something that we need to make a decision on tonight, but maybe something that our attorney needs to look into, is I think we passed a resolution or an ordinance that established a fee structure for our electronic sign on Route 35 and 10th Avenue there at the Belmar Marina. And maybe one of the things we can do moving forward for our residents or for our businesses in town for a month or 6 weeks is have a reprieve to charging folks for that. And when things do get up and running, maybe giving everybody so much time or so many slots on the sign to be able to promote their business and move forward. I've just been trying to think and brainstorm the things that we can do as a council and a municipality to support our business owners. And that's one that I just thought about the other day when I was driving down Route 35. Maybe we could do that. But I think perhaps it's more involved, because I think we passed a fee structure for that. So maybe we would need to look on legally on that, if we would have to pass another one and putting a program together, allowing people to do that.
Okay, thank you. Just one question, Councilman McCracken. Did Mike do the sign on the top of the senior building? The Hope sign that he put up there?
I believe that he did, yes.
Yeah.
He's talented. He does a lot of work with mirrors and signs and different things.
Yeah. If anybody goes by it, it's up on the roof of the senior building. He did a nice job on it. He really did.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Wan.
Am I on? Okay, couldn't see that. Okay, thank you, Mayor. My reports represent Parks and Recreation, as we know, are closed right now. Also, ADA, we tried to have a virtual meeting, and we're still working on it. Let's put it that way. But I want to thank John. I guess we all thank John Sabia for the social media posts that he's been put out. I know I've been locked in the house for almost a month now. I'm ready for a padded room, I don't mind saying. But thank you for the social media, for being able to keep up on everything. Thank you for the mayor and council for keeping in touch with me. It's been very tough, and I'm not alone. There's so many residents in town who are alone. And so if you're listening out there, if you know somebody who is alone, reach out to them, give them a phone call, just ask if there's anything you could do. People have been very kind, dropping off food, using the food cart service to get your food delivery. It's been very tough, and and I know it's tough on a lot of people in town, and I kind of share that with them. But I just want them to know that our police department, OEM, everybody down at the council is working so hard to take care of our community, and I'm very proud of them. I really am very proud of them. I'm pretty much on top of what's going on, even though I'm locked in. But I have to say, I really am proud of everything that's being done. And I just want to thank the mayor, you, Mark, and the council for listening, for all of us. We've received messages, emails, phone calls for people from businesses in town, and my heart goes out to them. They must be so terrified. This is something we've never experienced before, this COVID tragedy. And so they're scared. And I want to thank you all for listening, and let's do this thing right, to table this, and maybe we'll come out with something better. But I know it's for the best, and I know that Mark, you have the best intentions for the business, and thank you all for what you've done. And that's it. Everybody stay safe, and don't be afraid to reach out to any of our services if you need anything. Everybody here in Belmar is wonderful, and they're all here to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Council President Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank all the other council members who have already given their reports. I concur with everything everybody said. I want to personally thank Business Administrator Kirschenbaum, April Claudio, our Borough Clerk, DPW Director Campbell, and Chief Scott, and everybody that works for them. They are keeping the town running. And to do it under this much pressure, I mean, I just hats off, and we thank you for all your efforts. Second thing, supporting businesses. One of the things I would like to say is my family, my wife and I, are making an extra effort to support the restaurants that are still open. Everybody's heard about Federico's. They've been in the media, but they're not the only game in town. A lot of other restaurants are open. One of the ways you can support them is if you are using social media and you get food delivered or you pick up food from them, you know, take pictures of the food, post it on social media, talk about how great they are, because they're great. I haven't had a bad meal yet. Some of my favorite restaurants are closed. I mean, I can't get any Chinese food. That's kind of a drag. And I'm a big fan of Belmar bagels, and I don't know what I'm going to do with no bagels on the weekend. But, you know, if that's the least of my worries, I'm lucky. There's one more thing I wanted to point out. The other council members, I haven't had a chance to talk to everybody about it. Back in the third week in March, right after Governor Murphy issued his first executive orders concerning COVID and concerning what actions we had to take, we all received a letter from a group called the New Jersey Food Council, which states that, in their opinion, this executive order says that we should not be enforcing our plastic bag ban ordinance because it's somehow burdensome. It's an extra burden at this time. You know, in looking into it, and I also talked to Councilman John Weber from Bradley Beach, who's a very, very active environmentalist. The New Jersey Food Council is basically a lobbying group for supermarkets. And this is the kind of thing that just makes my blood boil. I mean, it's disingenuous at best that they've opposed plastic bag ordinances from the get-go. They just don't want anybody. And now to use the state of emergency that we're in to try to push that agenda, I think that's makes my blood boil. I'm really glad. As far as Belmar goes, I don't think it's going to make any difference. Our businesses are already set up. No one's using plastic bags. We don't have a supermarket that would use plastic bags. There wouldn't even be a client of this food council. So for us to say to people, oh, don't do the plastic bag ban, it's just going to make more confusion. Who needs that right now? Just leave it alone, and there's no action required, not on our part. And thank you. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple things. One, I definitely want to thank our administrative staff, our employees, our police department, fire. Everybody has been stepping up. First aid. Mike Campbell's been doing an unbelievable job with his guys, cleaning 3-4 times a day, making sure everything is clean and sanitized. Tina with the Chief Scott with the police department, unbelievable job making sure that they're safe going into places and giving them the equipment they need. And I also want to thank our residents because we have a very low number of cases here, and it's because of our residents that are social distancing. I see it every morning if I'm out for a walk. Everybody's trying to stay away from everybody, and so I really want to thank everybody because this is blowing up in some towns, and knock wood, I mean, it can blow up any day in our town, but hopefully with everything that we're putting in place, even when our fire trucks go out and they come back to the firehouse, Mike has his guys in there cleaning the fire trucks, cleaning everything and making sure that everybody's safe. So, there's a lot of burden on the DPW with this thing going, the police department, first aid, fire, and everybody has been stepping up. Our OEM staff, everybody that's working in the office, it's a tough burden. We got to keep the borough going. So I definitely want to thank everybody that's been working hard to try to suppress this nasty virus in our town. But so with that being said, I just want to say about changing the ordinance for the BBP. Everything that this administration has been doing, everything that comes in, we look out for the businesses. We try to get people in here. We had a great Dine and Discover. We try to bring people into town to get into our businesses. Everything that we're doing, we really try to push the businesses. So some of the emails that we got on this, I was really surprised because we've put John Sabia in place, who's out there doing videos and really promoting our town. We went to the 3 boat shows this year so that we could promote our marina. And promoting our marina, he did such a great video all over town with the restaurants and the shops that we have and everything. So I was a little put off when I got some of the emails because everything that we're doing is a lot is for our business community, because if you don't have a good downtown Main Street, you don't have a good town. So with that being said, I don't want to keep beating the horse, but we'll have an open public meeting. We'll get everybody that's involved in, and we will discuss what's going to go forward with the special permit district. The only other thing is, I don't know if everybody's aware, the bridge is open. They're a month ahead of schedule. In this case, I was hoping they were a month behind schedule, but the bridge is open. So the Ocean Avenue Bridge opened up early. They did a great job. They got open a month early. If this COVID-19 wasn't around, I'd be so happy, but it would have been nice if they were closed for a couple more weeks. It would have helped us out. Other than that, I just want to wish everybody a happy Easter, a happy Passover, because that is coming up this week, even though it's not on our minds, but try to make the best of what you can make with your families online or whatever you could do. That's my report. So we're going to go into public session on resolution items only.
Okay, everybody, stand by, please. We're gonna go for hands, and please give me a second to click some buttons. Thank you. We have a Brett Lamas. Stand by, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Brett, you're ready to go.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the redevelopment agreement resolution, which I think is 2020-95. So Mayor Walsifer, on a couple occasions, you've stated that one of the reasons that you want this to be an area in need of redevelopment is so that the town council and you can have more control over the process and the plan. And the relative redevelopment agreement is the point in the process in which a town can require concessions from a prospective redeveloper. There's a case called Applied Monroe, which says that withholding official designation of redeveloper can be used by a town to make sure the redeveloper agreement, which is the contract, exactly what the town wants. So I'm just going to read shortly from the New Jersey Law Journal talking about Applied Monroe. So this says, by requiring a redeveloper designation as a prerequisite for applying for site plan approval, municipal governing bodies enjoy a gatekeeper function over the entire redevelopment process. They can decide who gets to pursue a development approval and, if they so choose, unilaterally withhold the redeveloper designation from even property owners with the financial wherewithal to effectuate the redevelopment plan simply because they favor another candidate. More likely than not, redeveloper designation will be based on whomever is willing to make the most concessions to the municipality during negotiations over a redevelopment agreement. Such negotiations provide an additional avenue for a municipality to influence the eventual project by demanding certain design criteria, off-site improvements, or monetary payments. Relying on Applied Monroe, municipalities will likely vet potential redevelopers based upon the terms they can extract pursuant to a redevelopment agreement. So my questions tonight are going to focus, so that's the end of the quote. My questions tonight are going to focus on the concessions that were required from developers. First, I don't think that Belmar issued an RFP because the owner wanted to do the redevelopment, I believe. Is that correct? I'm assuming that's correct.
As far as an RFP, the developer owned the land.
Right. Yeah. So it
We
wasn't
don't need
put
an
out
RFP
for
for that.
proposals or anything, right? Yeah. So,
But
as stated,
Mr. Dasty could answer that legal opinion that you, or the legal procedure that you mentioned or read. Mr. Dasty, you got to hit your button. You're muted.
I got him. Stand by, Mr. Dest. Love it when the buttons don't work. Mr. Dasty, can you please do it, please?
Sorry, John. Mr. Lomas, can you hear me?
yes, I can.
Okay. The mayor what the mayor started to say was correct. I mean, for the town to have an RFP on someone else's property would be problematic, if not a potential inverse condemnation issue. That they own the property. Let's
Right.
say XYZ were to qualify, so to speak. Well, XYZ doesn't own the property. The Sachem Pond people own the property. So I think that would be problematic, and that is not at all the norm in redevelopment agreements when the town is not the owner. I think what you're driving at is if the town is the owner of the property, and they go out for RFQs, which is similar to what we started to do on another property that the town does own.
Okay. So I think, and maybe you guys can look into it more, but this particular case, Applied Monroe, the background was that the property owner did want to be the redeveloper in this situation, and the town chose another developer because the town got a better deal out of the other developer, and it was upheld that the town is in fact allowed to do that. That the property owner does not need to be the redeveloper, and so I wasn't sure if because I think that was relatively new. So be that as it may, I'll move on. So one of the things that everybody knows, obviously, you hear it out almost every meeting, is that parking is an issue. Currently, in the lot in question is basically used as public parking for employees of surrounding businesses, St. Rose students, shoppers. Obviously not right now with all this going on, but I'm assuming that there is not a concession for public parking spaces included in the agreement.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Well, we're requiring him to rebuild the back lot and put parking spaces back in there and put lighting in the lot that goes out to, or the parking lot that goes out to 10th Avenue.
Okay.
So we're requiring him to do all that.
Oh, good. The other thing I wanted to mention was that, stormwater management has been an issue for the town in the past, and just at the last few meetings, if I remember right, There's been multiple presentations at council meetings regarding the problem and how it's only going to get worse. So I was wondering if there was a concession in there, to deal with the water management, issues that the town's facing.
Well, that's up to our engineers. And when it gets to planning for his final approvals, the engineer will look for the stormwater management and make sure that he pipes everything, drains, anything into our storm drains, so it doesn't puddle out in the street or anything like that.
Good.
But, our engineer will have all those, go over all the plans and make sure he does that.
Okay. So one of the other thing that I wanted to quickly talk about was that, this was the original designation for these properties to be in need of redevelopment. I think was that was like 2016 or 17 or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The earliest date I remember seeing is
Probably
2017.
Yes. Okay. The reasons, the reason that it was originally declared that relied on what's called Condition D, and I looked that up. That's one of the reasons that you can say this is an area in need of redevelopment. One of them was Condition D, and that's what was used for these properties. And that is areas with buildings or improvements showing dilapidation, obsolescence, overcrowding, faulty arrangement or design, lack of ventilation, light and sanitary facilities, excessive land coverage, deleterious land use or obsolete layout, which are detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the community. So, in other words, properties need to be shown to be detrimental to the safety, health, or morals or welfare of the community in order to use Condition D. And when this original designation was made for these properties, too much impervious coverage was listed as a reason that these properties needed to be redeveloped. I didn't know if you were aware of that because it was before you guys were on council, most of you. So basically, because the impervious coverage of those lots were too high, it was declared that stormwater runoff was deemed to be detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the community. And so one of the things that I wanted to see was whether the agreement addressed the issue of impervious coverage being too much. In other words, does it require less impervious coverage than is currently there if the reason it needed to be redeveloped was because the impervious coverage was too high?
Mr. Lomas, once again, this is Jerry Dasty. As the mayor indicated before, this process is not yet over. He would, presuming for the sake of the discussion that the mayor and council does approve the resolution, that the developer still has to get all of the outside agency approvals from the DEP and from all the different state agencies, and apply to the planning board. And they would have public notice, of course, and they'd have to prove to the planning board that the amount of stormwater that's going to be generated from this construction is going to be handled or going to be less than what is now exists. So he can't increase the stormwater discharge.
Yeah,
unless
correct.
Gonna,
I think my concern,
and
I guess I didn't, I'm sorry.
So so I guess to get to your question about less impervious, there's going to be less stormwater runoff. I'm not here to tell you how much blacktop is going to be. I don't know, but there has to be less. There has to be no more than it currently exists in terms of offsite generation of stormwater, and he'll have to control what comes off his site. That may or may not require an improvement to the stormwater system in the area. I don't know. That's, as the mayor indicated, that's an engineering issue that has to be talked about at the planning board level and at the DEP level.
Thank you. I think, I guess what I'm trying to clarify, ask, and for you to keep in mind as a council is that, if the original designation said that this was too high, so it needed to be redeveloped, I think I remember in the plan saying that it would, the impervious coverage could go up to the current level. And I guess my issue is that if it goes up to the current level, then no improvement has been made. And the designation of it being needed to be redeveloped was because the impervious was already too high. So I think it'd be a mistake to allow the redevelopment to go up to the level that was deemed too high. That was the point I was trying to make there.
All right, but Mr. Lomas, if and again, this is really a planning board issue, but if the original reason, or one of the original reasons adopted by the mayor and council to declare this area in need of redevelopment, and by the way, don't forget that's after a study was done by the planning board in 16 or 17, and the planning board recommended that. If one of the reasons for that designation is that there was too much macadam, well, whether it's going to be the same macadam or less or more, there's going to be less stormwater runoff. And that's what, that's what the issue about the macadam
Okay.
is all about. And certainly at the planning board level, there'll be landscaping issues. And all those kinds of things will be vetted out at the planning board level. And certainly as a next door neighbor, you'll get notice of that hearing.
I think one of the things that I'm trying to get across is I don't think the town, that Belmar needs to wait for the planning board. I think the nature of redevelopment agreements can be as specific as the council wants. So if the council wanted to enforce an improvement for stormwater or anything else, including design criteria, that can go into the redevelopment agreement. So, another reason that was listed in the original agreement that I would have liked to see in the redevelopment agreement was that the emergency access lane was too small. Basically, the planning board in the town said that the lane was too small, and so that was detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the community. And so I know that in the mock-ups that were shown previously, there was a tunnel for access through the middle of the building. And I guess, I was concerned that the agreement didn't have minimum dimensions required for the emergency access. If the original lane is too small, what dimensions are the original lane? And I believe that the new lane would necessarily have to be bigger than that if the original lane was too small. So again, I don't think you need to wait for the planning board for that. That can go into the redevelopment agreement. What I'm saying is that the agreement that was listed on the site doesn't address the reasons that the properties needed to be redeveloped, or at least some of them. The agreement also doesn't require any green space in accordance with multifamily development. It doesn't require any buffers or any of those things. And I believe that the council could put those into the agreement if they so choose, going by the case law of Applied Monroe. So I read the agreement the other day. It's clear that the agreement doesn't address the reasons the property needed to be redeveloped when the designation was made. In fact, from what I can tell, there are two specifics that concerned me in the agreement. The first specific was that the development had 30 units, which was listed specifically. From what I remember, the original plan had 30 units, and then the council required a step back, if you remember, from the neighborhood, from the east side for that top level. But the agreement still said 30 units. I'm wondering how that's possible. And I would think that it would be prudent to state in the agreement that a maximum number of units, not a specific number of units. And I'm assuming that if they cut that top level off, there would necessarily have to be less units in that row.
I think, again, and I not believe me, I understand you're the next door neighbor and you have a lot of vested interests and concern about this. So I certainly, and I know the mayor and council, we're not trying to be argumentative, but they did listen to your concerns a few months ago. And as a result, the part of the building next to your property became 3 as opposed to, it used to be 4 stories. And I think it was even moved back further from the common boundary line. I think there might be 30-foot setback from your common boundary line. And so I'm not sure what your point is.
So I guess what I was asking was, if I, yeah, those concessions, you're correct. Those concessions were made prior, I guess, a couple of months ago now. But the number of units, I think, stayed the same. And that was my question, I guess.
Okay.
So the second part of the agreement that concerned me was the tax breaks. You know, as we all know, that the town's in a pretty rough financial state that you know, everybody's kind of working together to improve. You know, I think that, you know, we're raising water rates, which I think is unrelated, actually, now that I think about it. But the property taxes went up by a good amount, and everybody kind of the town kind of I guess, I don't know what the term is, you know, sucked it up or whatever, and paid a higher share to improve the financial situation of the town. What concerns me is that I think in the agreement, the developer, the first year after completion only has to pay 10% of their property taxes of the new assessed value. I think you know, there's lots of people that would love to pay 10% of their assessed property taxes, and I'm not sure why that concession was made to the developer. You know, as
Well, that concession was made, we took out the pilots, so everybody gets paid, the school gets paid, everybody gets paid under this. And the reason why we gave some of these concessions is because normally when you knock down a building, you only have to pay taxes on the land portion. We're not allowing him to do that. So the whole time that he has construction, he has to pay the higher property tax, just like that building was there with improvements. So we give him a break to step up to pay the full amount of taxes over years. And that includes the school getting their share, everybody getting their share, because it's a big difference when they assess that brand new building compared to what it is now. So for him to get fully operational, we give him the incentive because he's going to be paying the full amount of taxes, so we don't lose any during construction. So it's a give and take. It was negotiated, and I think it's 9 years he'll be paying the full amount of taxes. But it's a big different story when he has that built, and the value of it compared to what it is now is going to be, so we will get a lot more taxes. The school will get a lot more taxes, and every year that it goes up, everybody will get fully funded. So, and that was one of the things that was negotiated. So it ended up in the redevelopers agreement. Same as on the same as on the property on 11th Avenue that we did.
so you know, one thing I'd like to you know, reiterate is that the redevelopment agreement is a contract between the council and really any developer you wish. The redevelopment agreement provides an avenue for a municipality to influence the project, right? Like, this is the time to influence the project, you know, when the contract is signed. So by demanding certain design criteria, offsite improvements, or even monetary payments. So really, I guess what I'm asking is, at a minimum, in this agreement, you should demand the improvements that were the reason the designation was made back in 2016 or 17 as a site to be redeveloped. I think you should demand design criteria that benefit the town. I like that you know, they are redesigning the public parking spaces in the back. I hope they gain a couple spaces that way. But you know, that lot currently is being used basically as public parking. So if there's no public parking in that lot, I think overall it's going to be a negative. I think you could even ask for green space buffers, maximum number of units. You know, I see the reasoning behind the tax break. I think, you know, probably the town loses out more than they gain by keeping it the full amount of the improvements that are currently there for the, you know, for what, 1 or 2 years of construction, I would assume. But, you know, I think, you know, really, you know, a lot of, at least a few of you ran when you were running, ran on sensible development. And I talked when you were running. I talked to a few of you about sensible development, and really that's kind of what the town wants. I'm concerned that there's in a rush to get stuff done. I'm concerned that we're losing that, and that angering more and more residents. I think I a lot of times probably sound like a broken record to you guys, and a lot of times I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. But what I'm trying to get you to realize is that you don't have to just take kind of whatever the developer says, and your hands aren't tied. The council has all the power here in that give and take. You can demand that borough concerns like parking, emergency access, stormwater management are addressed, and the time to do it is in the agreement. You can also demand green space or any other design criteria you want that would benefit the public. After all, the intention of redevelopment law is to benefit the public, not the property owner or the developer. So what I'd like you to ask you to do is vote on this resolution separately. I don't think it should be combined with all the other resolutions. I think the nature is different. And I would actually, really like you to if you didn't know that the agreement is a place where you could ask for those concessions, or at least codify the reasons that it needed to be redeveloped and make sure that those are addressed. The agreement is the time to do that, and it can be done in the agreement. So if you didn't know that, I'd like you to, just take a step back, table it, and look at the options. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a question for Mr. Dasty, because I think that Mr. Blomus did bring up some good points about the redevelopment and why the area was designated a redevelopment area. So just to make sure we're all under the same understanding, that when this goes to the planning board looks at those issues, why it was designated, to make sure that that property meets the standards that we expect and that Mr. Lomas was talking about. Is that correct? That's a planning board issue?
Yes, that's correct. And then the next step for this project is going to the Technical Design and Review Committee. That's what we're voting on tonight, to put those people in place. That's for the outside, the aesthetics of the whole building. It goes there first, and then it'll go to planning board, where our planner and our engineer and architect will direct the board to make sure all that is done.
Councilmember Kraken, that's correct. The mayor is obviously correct. It's the planning board, when they initially recommended to the township council back in 16 or 17 that this should be designated as an area for redevelopment, used the reason that Mr. Lomas just said. So certainly when they go back to the planning board is going to make sure that that issue is resolved as part of the new redevelopment process.
I don't know if my mic is still on. I completely understand, and I know that is that's one way to, that's the normal way, I guess, of doing it. But I think what I'm talking about is that the redevelopment agreement also can have those types of details.
Yeah, so this is an involved process, right? I mean, there's a redevelopment ordinance, now there's a redevelopment agreement, then it's going to go to the Technical Design Review Committee, and then it's going to go in front of the planning board, and all these different places. I mean, there's professionals that are going to have input. They're going to be looking at all of the different things that need to be addressed. Take the coverage issue that you were referring to, and how much runoff that creates. I mean, was the coverage the actual issue, or was the runoff the issue, and it was caused by the coverage? And so long as the runoff gets taken care of, is the coverage really an issue? So, I think you'll have an opportunity again, when it comes in front of the planning board, to have that concern addressed. But, Mr. Dasty, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what Mr. Lomas is saying is not inaccurate. However, there's more than one way to do things. And, you know, I don't think that, or I wouldn't be comfortable as the council person putting such, details into it when that's something that the planning board should take up. Maybe you could just address that.
Well, Councilman, I think you're correct. We're not the planning board. And I think that Mr. Lomas wants us to look as if this is a current site plan application, which it's not. This is the way the process is. I understand that Mr. Lomas, as a next door neighbor, wants to see things differently, but the law is being fully complied with. And there will be more opportunities, both with regard to DEP applications, planning board, technical review committee we talked about, the design committee, to address those concerns. That, it seems to me, is the function of those other bodies. So I think
I'm sorry.
I think that we have to understand Mr. Lomas's viewpoint here and where he's coming from. But I think the process has been fully complied with correctly. And there's more than ample opportunity for Mr. Lomas's concerns to be addressed before the technical review committee or design committee, whatever it's the DEP, and certainly our planning board.
I didn't mean to insinuate that anything was, not being properly done. I do agree that, the law is being followed. But I think, Tom, you kind of, you put it exactly what I'm saying. The one thing I will say, and I'll leave it at this, is I think having specifically 30 units versus a maximum of 30 units is something, that's one of those details that maybe doesn't need to be in the agreement if we're not putting other details in the agreement.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to kick his application back if he tries to put less than 30 units in.
Agreed, but I wouldn't want him.
That's another thing that the
I
planning board
wouldn't
will
want
look
the
at.
developer saying, I have to do 30 units because that's what the agreement says.
Well, it's basically going to be up to our planner, because if they're not the required size of the units and he can't put them in, then he has to reduce the number of units. So that's, our planner will take a look at that at the planning board. It might only be able to fit 28, but that's for the professionals to take a look at, to make sure that the units are the right size, the bedrooms are the right size. And if he can't fit them all in, then he's going to have to reduce the number of units at that time. But that's for the planner and architects and engineers to make sure that that's correct. So, and as far as dropping the back part of it down and the changes that he made, I think he took some 2 bedrooms and made them 1 bedroom so that he could fit that all in.
That's good. That's correct.
That's something that the planning board will look at to make sure that they're legal size units. So if he can't fit them in the space that we gave him to put them in, then he has to reduce it.
Brett, are you any more questions?
No, I did want to thank all the police and the first responders and DPW for everything, but that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Stand by, everybody. Okay, we have Cheryl Russo coming up. And then just be aware, everybody, make sure that your background is quiet if you're in a quiet room, so don't hear any background noise while you're asking your questions. Stand by for Cheryl. Stand by, please. The buttons are sticky. All right, Cheryl, please say your name and address, please.
Cheryl Russo, 1218 Briarwood Road in Belmar. Can you hear me?
If you're good to go, go ahead, please.
I'm not sure if I'm speaking at the right time. I know we talked about the COVID-19 stuff already. And my question was, I know that when we had the makers.
This is only for the resolution items, Cheryl, just the resolution item right now.
All right, I wasn't sure if we went through that on the COVID.
We'll have a public hearing at the end.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl. Just please, I'm gonna keep your hand up. I'm just gonna mute you, so if you can come back later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, John.
you could see if anyone else has any questions.
Oh, does anyone else have any questions before we move on?
I see none.
Okay, well, we are going to remove 2020-93 for a separate vote. April, if you want to do that first, or
Sure. First, we need a motion to close the public session. And a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, next we'll have a motion to approve resolution 2020-93.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Approve. Just a second.
Okay. Do, Councilman Brennan?
No, I have to vote no. I'm not opposed to redeveloping this property, but as I've stated before, I think the design as presented doesn't have enough parking. So no.
Okay. Councilman Juan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Next, can we have a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Juan?
Hold on, Councilman Juan, hold on.
Okay, yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes. Okay, now we're moving on to ordinances for the first reading. Jerry, we got a little question on this here. Can we, because they're first reading, take one vote on all of them? I know there was a question that come up from one of the residents. Jerry, you got to turn your mic on.
I'm trying to do it. It's not going. Stand by.
There we go. Are we okay now?
There you go.
Thank you. April was kind enough to send to me the email from the gentleman this morning indicating that our ordinance allows for consent agendas, and I'm paraphrasing now, consent votes except for resolutions, or excuse me, except for ordinances. I think it's very clear that that really is intended towards second reading of ordinances. And because the first reading of an ordinance, there's no public comment, it moves the agenda along. So I see no issue whatsoever with the way Belmar has been handling its consent agendas for years. The way I read I think that's really, the comment was more form over substance. The way I read our code, it does allow, and it's meant to allow, a consent vote on First Amendment of ordinances, and that's what I'm advising you.
Yeah, that's for introduction, right?
Yeah, first
That's for the
reading.
introduction.
Yes, sir.
Because there's no public comment or anything like that.
All right.
Oh, maybe because April listed it as a consent, if she just would have read it off 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 as one vote, maybe it would be better off that way.
You can do that too. I don't think you can do that also. The resolution speaks for, the agenda that we have published speaks for itself, but you can certainly do that. You can read them off and then vote en masse if that's what you'd like to do.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, I have a motion to offer ordinances 2020, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 for first reading and introduction.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Councilman Brennan?
I just want to be clear, the ordinance that we're going to do for styrofoam and straws we want to have language in there that says that straws are available to someone who requests them. You know, some people need straws, and even though it's not there now, we can vote on it now and have it amended before the second reading. Is that correct? Okay.
What's your mic, Chair? I see your lips moving, but nothing's happening.
My fault. Sorry. Yep. I'll stand by.
Thank you.
Go, Chair.
Council President, I will make that change and get it to April tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Juan,
Yes.
Councilman Carnelli,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
and Mayor Walker.
Yes.
Okay, next is second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2029. This is a capital ordinance providing for the acquisition of a street sweeper and pickup truck, and it's open for public hearing. If anyone from the public would like to make a comment.
I see none. I just want to check to make sure Cheryl doesn't want to comment. Her hands up regularly. Stand by.
No,
Cheryl, you're good. Yes.
no, I just had that one other question when it's time.
What was your question again, just so I can make a note?
It was about the printer for the COVID-19 that we can
Got it.
use.
Thank you. Put you on mute. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, can I have a motion to close?
Stand by. I see a Eugene Kramer.
Eugene Kramer.
Eugene Kramer, stand by. Eugene, please state your name. Hold on.
Eugene Creamer, 4th Avenue.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Kramer.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I want to talk about the street sweeper. Ordinance, I guess it's 2020-09. And this is to pay for, I guess, about $283,000 for a street sweeper and a pickup truck. I guess my comments about most of these street sweepers, by the way, work most efficient when the operator is able to get the brushes right up against the curb and sweep out the gutter as they go up and down the streets. Unfortunately, and by the way, we're going to be facing challenges going forward, complying with non-point source pollution provisions that are in the Clean Water Act. My concern here is parked cars. Now, we're heading into a part of the year where around my property, and I live on a corner, that I'll go through the whole summer where the street sweeper is unable to sweep the street up to the curb around my property. Okay, we'll go through the whole summer. There'll be cars parked out there, and I do have to hand it to the operators of the street sweeper. These guys are like trying to drive a big machine down an obstacle course, and in effect, it's when there's cars parked on the street, it's a totally inefficient process. Other towns have taken positive steps to make sure that the streets are swept. And I'm bringing this up because here we are, I guess we're spending about $250,000 on a piece of equipment that unfortunately is not going to be able to be operated efficiently the way that we have parking on the public streets here in town. Now, there's a couple ways that towns have been able to handle that, or I should say, try to handle it. There's alternate side of the street parking. Spring Lake goes as far as you can't have a car parked on the streets in Spring Lake between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. Now, there's a couple of things going on here, of course. You know, we're going to be going soon from a population of 6,000 people, and on a summer weekend, we go up 10 times that 60,000, and they all bring cars. And of course, parking is the least common denominator of most of the problems that we have in the whole town. I'm just wondering whether here's an expenditure of $250,000 for a piece of equipment. And unfortunately, the Public Works Department is not going to be able to do an effective job of cleaning the streets. I'm just wondering whether, I'll bring up a question now because of the expenditure. What steps is the town taking to improve the efficiency and cut down on costs? Over.
Mr. Kramer, first of all, the sweeper that we have is, I think it's 12 or 15 years old. It's costing us more to keep in repair than to get a new one. But the second part of your question, it's funny that you say that because we were just talking about it this week. We're implementing a couple other streets because we already have it on Main Street and Ocean Avenue, the alternate side of the street parking so the sweeper could get close to the curb. We're putting a couple more streets in, and maybe that's what we have to start looking at around town, is that because we usually do no parking between 5 and 7 in the morning on certain streets so the sweeper can get real close to the curb. So maybe that's something that we're going to start looking at. This ordinance is to buy the sweeper. We've been back and forth. We looked at the numbers of how much the repairs are to keep this thing running. And because of the age of it, it's cheaper for us to buy a new one, so it lasts us for another 12 years without costing us a lot of money. I hope that answers your question. But one thing that, and it's funny you bring up about getting close to the curb, because we are putting in more streets in the next few weeks. That'll be alternate side of the street parking so we can get that closer to the curb. So as we go along and talk about it, we'll see if we can do more streets.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. I wasn't concerned about I brought the subject up primarily because of having a dollar figure. And of course, the DPW has to operate the machine also. And it would be so much easier if we had ways to reduce parking in town. And by the way, I see this parking, of course, access is a major issue facing us. And as we get into the summer, it's not going to get better. In fact, I could actually notice more cars parked on the street now during this virus crisis that we have going on here. Also, I guess I'd like to see the street sweeper do an effective job of cleaning things up. I have no objection, by the way. I consider this equipment necessary in order to comply with non-point source pollution and doing a better job of cleaning up the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Stand by, just gonna delete, I'm sorry, not delete, mute Mr. Eugene. I do not see anyone else for this part.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
And a motion to adopt ordinance 2029.
Make the
motion.
You have a second?
Second?
Okay, Councilman Brennan?
Hold on.
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Councilman Wallen?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Okay, next is the second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2020-10. This is a bond ordinance providing for improvements to 12th Avenue and 15th Avenue, and this is open for public comment.
Anyone like to speak on this?
Stand by. Stand by 1 second. Okay, Joan, please say your name and your address, please.
Is this me, Joan?
You're on, Joan.
You're on.
Oh, Joan Corallo, A Street. This 12th Avenue, Phase 3, 12th Avenue, Ocean Avenue to B Street, is that a repaving?
Stand by, hold on.
Did you lose me? Did you lose me?
No, they
Hold
lost
on,
me,
please,
Joe.
Mayor, hold on.
It's curbs and repaving, Joan.
Oh, because they did the curbs all the way up the street, but they did not do the curbs on 12th and A. Is that part of that project?
Yeah, you're the next phase of it. They're gonna get up to B Street, and then you're the next phase. This
But they did do-
this here ordinance is just to borrow the money until they pay us, because this is all done on a grant.
All right, because they did do the curbs on the corner of 12th and B, and like I say, they did every curb on 12th Avenue except the corner of A. But
They're coming.
it is going to be replaced.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joan. Anyone else?
I see none.
Okay, April.
I have a motion to close the public hearing
Motion.
Second.
and a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-10.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Brennan,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
Councilman Juan,
Go, Councilwoman.
Councilwoman
Yes.
Juan, Councilman Carvelli,
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer.
Yes.
Next is public hearing and second reading on ordinance 2020-11. This is an ordinance amending chapter 29 of the water sewer utility. It's open for public comment.
Stand by. I see a Christine. Christine, are you there? Say your name and address,
Pass me
please.
The tortilla, please, just one.
Stand by, please. Christine, are you there? Hold on, stand by, please. These buttons are sticky. Sorry, everyone. I'm hitting the button and it does not work. Stand by, please. I'm sorry, Christine. Unfortunately, it's not going through. Give me one more second, everybody. I will write to the company. Thank you. I'm sorry, Council. It's not clicking through. Give me one more second to try something, and we will just move on. Unfortunately.
John, is it a problem with her equipment or? Is it?
Could possibly be. One more second. We can't get it now. If we can't get it now, we'll keep going. Stand by. No, I'm sorry, Christine. We're gonna have to move on.
Unless, can she call in to us? She has a question.
Christine, on the invitation, there was a call-in number. You could feel free to use that and see if that works, and we'll get back to you. You may have to leave the conference and come back, the webinar, but we can do that. Mr. Borough Administrator, do we have time for that?
We want everybody to be able to call in, if she can call in.
Yeah, if she has a question, we would definitely want to take her question.
Let's move on to the next ordinance then, until then.
John, can you also disable all the talking permitted? Maybe there's too many of those.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do. Stand by.
Okay.
We can actually move forward from that call.
Yes, the buttons are not working. So I have a Joan Corolla, stand by.
Just talk to Joan.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, yes, hold on. Okay, nope, it's not going through. I apologize, everybody. We'll keep moving forward.
I got a phone text that was a mistake, so you can move on to the next ordinance. Or move on to the business.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak on this ordinance? No? Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
And then a motion to adopt ordinance 2011.
Motion.
April, could you, so we haven't, someone who wanted to comment on this ordinance, but for technical reasons was unable to?
No, they texted in, Jim, and said that was a mistake. They texted.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-11
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, Councilman Brennan,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
Councilman Juan,
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli,
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer.
Yes.
Okay, then we have second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2020-12. This is an ordinance amending chapter 19, traffic, designating certain intersections as multi-way stop intersections. It's open for public hearing.
I see none.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 And a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-12.
So moved.
Like the motion.
And a second?
Second.
Yeah, Councilman Brennan,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
Councilman Juan,
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli,
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer.
Yes.
Okay, next, can I have a motion to table ordinance 2020-18?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Councilman Brennan,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
Councilwoman Juan,
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli,
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer.
Yes.
And last one is second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2020-17. This is an ordinance amending chapter 40, creating a new section involving mobile food vendors. It's open for public comment.
I see none.
Okay, a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-17.
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Brennan,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vaughn,
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli,
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer.
Yes. Okay, public session, right? Yeah. Okay, John. Cheryl Russo had a question for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Stand by, show.
Can you hear me?
There we are. It's working now. All right, show. You're up. Name and address, please.
Charlotte Russo, 1218 Briarwood Road in Belmar. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Cheryl.
All right. I'm also been sewing masks and been a part of other things with the mask sewing. My question is, I remember when we had the maker space, we had one of the 3D printers that was put in storage. And my question was, would it be possible to bring it out of storage and for us to be able to use it? I know that a lot of people are requesting, like for the back of their mask, there's like a little band that they can put on so it doesn't have to go through their ears. Like the string from the mask is like causing people wearing it to get raw ears, like people in the medical profession. And I was wondering if it was a possibility that we could bring out the 3D printer to make something like that to help out during this time.
First of all, Cheryl, thank you for making masks. And I'm going to let you, I'm going to let Business Administrator Kirschenbaum explain that it's already in use, but go ahead.
Oh, that one is already in use?
Hi, Cheryl. Yeah, we deployed the 3D printer down to Mr. Hutchinson. It's a low end. It's a low end printer, so we're not able to utilize it for what he was doing, and we're doing what we can with his equipment. I know that he went out on his own and purchased another machine, and we're talking to him about possibly obtaining the other one. But that machine, everything that we have was deployed, all of our supplies and all of our equipment.
All right, thank you. I know that I had sent something over to him to show, it's like a little band that it holds the elastic together. It goes in the back of your head, and then you hook the little mask pieces onto it. So it's a very simple design.
Oh, what we'll do is I'll touch base. We're in contact with them every day, and everybody's doing a fantastic job with the needs of the community and our first responders and our healthcare workers. So I will touch base with him and Pat tomorrow.
Yes, they're wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand by. We have Linda. Stand by.
Can you hear me, John?
There
Yeah,
you are.
go ahead.
Your name.
Just state your name and address for us.
Oh, shoot.
Linda?
Hey, John, could you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you fine. You're good to go with a name and address, please. Linda, you're okay to go. Linda, you're still there? Just say your name and address. It looks good on my end. Okay, we have a Katrina that will come back to you, Linda. Maybe something's on your end. Katrina, stand by, please. Katrina, please say your name and address, please. Are you there?
Yes, hi. Katrina Klapsis, 1304 B Street. I actually don't have a question. I just have a comment. I'd like to share with you guys how much I appreciate personally the fact that you're getting this Zoom meeting together for us to be able to have our meetings. I've been going on a lot of other Zoom meetings, learning new technology. It's quite fantastic, thank goodness. But it's really good that we are able to do this as a community. And I know there's our council people, some of them aren't even here. If I believe Tom's still down in Florida, and And it's just a really great thing under the circumstances. We know everybody's having a tough time in town. And on that note, also, I also like to say the town's doing a great job. Everything I see, it's great to have a great sense of community. And I see that here in Belmar. It's a wonderful place to live. I want to thank you all you guys for your hard work, DPW, everybody. But as a little aside, what Eugene Creamer was saying about the street sweeper, you know, I live on B Street down in the South End, and I could tell you that street sweeper 90% of the time is a total waste of time and energy. We are always parked in the street here, and we really don't have the luxury of driveways a lot of times and everything down here. So if I love the idea about the maybe alternate streets, side of the street parking in areas, because it really, honestly, is really just a waste of time. It's sad to say. But that's just an aside because Mr. Creamer brought that up. But I just want to thank you guys very, very much for all your hard work, everyone in the community, all our first responders. Thank you all, and God bless you and keep safe.
Thank you, Katrina. God bless you as well. And put you on mute. And we're gonna go. I'm sorry, Brain. That was Katrina right there, right? Correct. I'm sorry. All right, Linda. We're gonna try you one more time and see if that works. Stand by. Linda, are you there, please? I'm so sorry, Linda. I don't know what the issue is on our end. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put
She
you.
had the same problem last time, John. I believe it's on her equipment.
Thanks. All right. Let's. Oh, I have a Karen standby. Karen, are you there? Name and address, please. Standby.
116 14th Avenue.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to echo the comments that Katrina just made. I think these meetings are great. And I also appreciate what the mayor and council have done concerning postponing the summer rentals till May 31st. But as we're probably all aware, the virus won't be totally away by Memorial Day. And I was hoping there would be some way to prevent the overcrowding if and when the rentals are allowed to resume for the summer. Hopefully, you know, we want to keep the town vibrant and the businesses intact, but having, especially on our street, you know, hordes of people in little tiny cottages will really make the permanent residents unsafe. And I was wondering if there's any way to enforce occupancy rules or any plans for that if and when the renters are allowed to come back in.
Hold on there.
We're dealing with it week to week, Karen. So as things come down from the state and federal government and all the people from our Office of Emergency Management, if we have to continue that and not let the summer rentals in because of social distancing, we will be doing that. But right now, we've made it to Memorial Day weekend in case to make sure that nobody gets in early. And if we get to May 1st and it looks like it's going to be extended, we're going to extend it. So we're doing it week by week, day by day, and as everything, you know, we're watching everything. I know some of the businesses want to get open, and you know they're going to miss a lot of the summer, but you know we're watching it every day.
I appreciate this. I'm just hoping that hopefully we will, you know, be able to open, that the overcrowding, especially on 14th Avenue, we have these little tiny cottages with just like 10 or 15 people on each side of a little cottage on a Saturday night, which, you know, will make us very unsafe. So of course we don't want to close everything down, but I'm hoping that the overcrowding can be controlled a little bit.
Okay, well, we'll be watching it. I mean, even if they get in and you see overcrowding going on, call the police department and we'll come down, check it out. And our code enforcement will be there the next morning.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, so Linda texted me and she would like to know about the Dobco deal. Does that sound right?
Well, Dobco has 45 days and it's not up yet. We're waiting for the property owners to sign contracts, which I heard today that they're close to signing contracts. So next meeting, we'll be reporting a little bit more. But I did hear from Barry, who's putting the whole deal together, that he said they're close to signing contracts and are moving forward. So I should have more at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Linda, I hope that as well works for you. You can text me. Thank you. I see no more.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, well, we have to go, April, we're gonna have to go into a closed session for,
Right. So we're going to do a motion that's going to adjourn the public meeting. We won't be coming back because there's no further business. And this motion will also be to go into executive session. So this is a resolution authorizing executive session, whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, wait, let me go back, sorry. Motion to close the public session.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Back to the resolution. So it's a resolution whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas there was adequate notice to the public of this meeting, and whereas the Borough Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Council as follows: the public shall be excluded from discussion and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is personnel matters. Minutes will be kept of the closed session. It is anticipated at this time that the above subject matter will be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists, and this resolution shall take effect immediately. Do we have a motion?
Make the motion. Second.
Okay, Councilman Brennan,
Yes.
Councilman McCracken,
Yes.
Councilwoman Juan, Councilman Carvelli,
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer.
yes. And
You're on mute.
What's it? Oh, I'm on mute again.
I got you.
Yes, just to make sure that everybody knows that there's no action coming out of this meeting, so.
Okay.
Close this. We're going to leave this meeting and go into the closed session.
Thank you, everybody.
We should adjourn the meeting. Did we vote to adjourn the meeting, actually?
We'll do a
We should
separate
adjourn
vote
this-
to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.